this time forth
My name is Tom Lohr. I'm a native North Carolinian. I grew up in a small town called Cherryville, North Carolina. It's in the Charlotte area. I've enjoyed being in this state for many, many years. I grew up in a small town, and really, when I was growing up, about the only sort of extracurricular activity we could do in that small town was take piano lessons. There was no organized sport activities even for kids at that time, that place when I was growing up. And so I did start taking piano lessons at the age of 8. And I remember even at times when I started composing, it was much too ambitious a piece, and my piano teacher was not going to pretend to try to guide me in that. She just said, do this, and if you want to play bits and pieces of it for me from time to time, please do, but I can't help you with that. I really think she could have helped me more than she ever gave herself credit for, but that was just something that was sort of the way it was at that point in time. One other thing, when I was 9, I did have an accident that caused me to have, to be in a coma for a period of time. And after that, I had to be very, very careful with activities that I could do because the doctor said I should avoid any future possibilities for head injuries. And so that kind of put me in my own private world after that, and that private world was more of a focus on music and what I was doing with that. So that was sort of the thing that I had that needed to fill a bit of a void that was there in my life otherwise. 20 years ago, I noticed an advertisement on a bulletin board at Meredith College, which is where I was teaching then and teach now, requesting applications for a director of music at West Raleigh Presbyterian Church. I did not think that was anything that I could do full-time, but I certainly thought that it was something that I could do on an interim basis. So I called the number and set up an interview and came and met with 2 people here from the church and went through requirements that would be needed for the next few months, and I did let them know that I was really only interested in an interim position, and got started with that. And after several months, they did begin a search for a new permanent director of music, but many people in the church asked me to apply also. I really didn't feel as if I had the qualifications that I needed for all the aspects of the job, but I thought I'd given it a start and was doing pretty well with some of those that I really didn't feel as if I were trained to deal with. But things were working well, and so I was interviewed for that position, and I was hired, and 20 years later, here I am. Idea about music and the experience is really how we can share with each other as musicians here while we're working to prepare something for what I never really try to call a performance, for what I call an offering, and that we offer that to people and to God, and it doesn't really need evaluating. It needs the idea that since this is a shared expression, we hope that those listening really receive that gift, that portion of our ability that we're trying to share, and that message and meaning that we're trying to share. And based on comments we hear from people, I think that happens. Process of producing a piece, there's certainly lots of different avenues one can encounter. If I'm dealing with something that does deal with a text, certainly starting with the text and thinking, what is the message of this text? If there's anything that I want to do in terms of text painting and to reflect that in the lines that are to be sung, either by a soloist or by a choir, I certainly take that into consideration. Or I think, are there ways that I can represent that in accompanimental parts, if it is to be accompanied by piano or organ or a group of instruments? If text painting is not something at play, it's certainly the sheer aspect of the rhythm of the words and trying to show the meaning of the words through careful setting of rhythm and in terms of how melodic lines develop. I also do think that I think a whole lot about harmony and how things develop from a harmonic point of view, very often more so than a melodic point of view. So there are times when I really need to force myself to sort of start with a melodic point of view and see how things go in that instance. So in terms of writing a polyphonic piece, a piece of music that does have multiple melodies or the same melody and imitation, that's a really rewarding sort of thing to work with because it's a little bit out of my natural element. I do generally tend to think in big, thick textures because I like large amounts of sound, but I find very often it's so much nicer to think that I really want to limit this to just a few sounds and a few parts and to deal with something in a thinner texture. As working with a choir, to some degree, I know that I'm still deficient in many, many ways, but we have a process that seems to work to some degree. Part of the situation that's going to be the case with any volunteer choir is you're going to have different people at choir rehearsal each time you meet. And so for most pieces of music, we simply try to work on those over a period of several weeks, even if it doesn't take several weeks to learn those, just so that people, as they have time to be there for rehearsal, have an opportunity to experience those pieces and gain some confidence with those, so that on a Sunday, when we do need to sing any one of those pieces, everybody has some prior experience, if not immediate, from some of the weeks prior to that. In terms of writing things and writing differently for singers in a choir, I certainly know that there are strengths that this choir has, which are many, many, many. There are no doubt some weaknesses, because there are always going to be, but I find there are very, very few with this group. One thing is this group simply has confidence, and with confidence there's great opportunity for doing very many things. I'm totally amazed always at the fact that this choir is so willing to sing pieces that anybody has written, or ones that I've written, that divide them into multiple parts when we have so few people to put on a part. Instead of doing SATB things, we often do SSAATTBB, which is a real challenge. And we've even had, there's one work we sang many, many years ago, and probably will sing again, that divides into 12 different parts. And with just 18 singers, we sang that one Sunday. So it's really marvelous to have a group that trusts itself and is that confident to undertake most any sort of challenge, just as though that's the next step. And so I think to some degree the group could feel as if they've grown, but they've grown because they found it within themselves more than anything that I've done, really. They're very self-sufficient. at that time, that was many years ago, I asked each choir member to let me know 1, 2, or 3 favorite verses from the Bible with the hope of setting a short setting of each person's favorite verse or one of their favorite verses around the time of their birthday. And that became a year-long project that became a little bit more overwhelming than I expected it to be, but I made it through the full year. But I was very much dealing with each text more so than the person and the meaning of the text. It was with the person in mind, but more so the music was to reflect sort of the meaning of that text. The next year, I thought of dealing with each month. So anybody who had a January birthday needed to share a Bible verse, and I selected them in the second year's worth of activities. And after that, I stopped that kind of project because even at that, trying to write one verse a month, one short composition a month, was a bit more than I could guarantee I would have the time for each month. And many of those turned out to be longer than I expected them to be. I thought one verse, these pieces will be very, very short each, but they were longer than I thought they would be. But it was a fun sort of thing to do. Since then, I've enjoyed writing pieces for the choir pretty much as a Christmas gift each Christmas. And that's something that we generally sing sometime the early part of the year following each Christmas. Much prefer to see a wide variety of musical types and musical styles to show expressive qualities in many avenues, and to try to meet the musical and emotional and spiritual needs of different people, different generations, and just different styles, different preferences. And I know that there's some things that some people don't like. I even know there's some anthems that some choir members don't like, but they say, I don't mind singing this because I know I'm going to like the next one just fine. And they realize different people need different sorts of means and modes of expression to meet their spiritual and worship needs. And so they're willing to assist with those. The reason I've stayed here at West Raleigh all this time is because, frankly, I really enjoy it. The people here are very nice, they're very supportive. The musical values that people have are very, very strong, and they're ones that I agree with. I really like assisting people with the musical needs that they have here. The organ in this church is a really fantastic instrument, and I'll have to say I really enjoy playing it a whole lot, so I'm kind of selfish in that regard. But also just in working with people and the fact that they're open toward doing so many different things. Use of piano, use of bells, singing, adult choir, children's choir. The fact that I'm given an opportunity to experiment and try things here in this congregation as different ways of worship that I hope will be meaningful for people. And they certainly seem to be for me, and as far as I can tell, they do seem to be for members of the congregation and assisting musicians who help out with the music program.
I give you thanks, O Lord, with my whole heart. Before the gods I sing your praise. I bow down toward your holy temple and give thanks to your name for your steadfast love and your faithfulness. For you exalted your name and your word above everything. On the day I called you kings of the earth shall praise you, O Lord, for they heard the words of your mouth, and they shall sing of the ways of the Lord, for great is the glory of the Lord. For though the Lord is high, he regards the lowly, but the haughty he knows from